Well, welcome.
Thank you for having
I
me.
Yeah, I'm really happy that you're here. I'm really, really excited for you to talk to everybody today about rehabilitation and recovery after treatment. Um, I want you to talk a little bit about your personal story, but you certainly also have professional experience now, and I'm sure that you have noticed some things about recovery that are changing since you
Uh,
started, when you first started in your first meeting. How long ago was that, Rich?
so 35 years ago,
Yeah.
35.
So tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
All right. Thanks everybody for being here. And this is a pretty cool affair that Adrienne has put together. I am excited for her, for us, for the community. A little bit about myself. I was born into a affluent family on the Philadelphia Main Line. And I had a father that was sort of this big financial monster guy that did a lot of important things around our community and beyond. And I was always fascinated with my father. And at the same time, I never felt like my father liked me very much. And so those early beliefs became habitual. That thinking pattern became habitual. That my father really did because he had left us, but he'd come back periodically, and I always felt like he was just going through the motions. He was doing what he needed to do, and so anyway, alcohol and drugs were a big part of my mother's daily menu. Back then, it looked a lot different than it does now. You know, she was on diet pills and anxiety pills, and then deep into vodka every day. And the problem with the money that surrounded us is it allowed everything to look okay. And progressively inside that house, things got considerably worse over the years with abuse, both sexual and physical, from a stepfather that came aboard who was a monster, really, he was. But he also drove a nice car, and he threw money around, so everybody seemed to like him. But there again, that allowed the dysfunction in this family to grow more and more so to a serious level of both abuse of my sisters sexually and myself physically. So anyway, without harping on that too much and more so I learned at a very early age, the only coping skills I learned were those that I saw around me, and that was when it was a happy time they went to the bar. When it was a sad time, they went to this big grand bar that was built in our house. And for almost every affair, whether it was a funeral, Christmas, they always went to that bar. And I watched that and watched that over the years. And so that became my coping skill at the age of 12. I started drinking, like gulping down glasses of vodka. If I was playing outside, I'd run inside and grab a glass of vodka. And somehow, my first introduction to that was like I had never felt that good in my life. I had never been able to settle those anxieties. And so I fell in love, like we've all heard those stories from the very beginning. But that became a pattern for me. And again, it was all I really knew. And it was sort of, I watched people live their lives with the philosophy of better life through chemicals, not better life through spirituality, not better life through the community involvement, things like that, healthy ways of finding spirit for ourselves. I drank my spirit, and other people went for other healthier ways to bring spirit into their
So
life. So
let me ask you something on that point. You bring up an interesting thing there about it doesn't fill anything, right? Whether, it doesn't matter what you're using to feel better that's negative, right? It doesn't matter if it's a substance or a behavior or what, because if you don't address the core issues, the rehabilitation and recovery after treatment isn't going to be there.
Right, right. And I went to treatment from the early or mid 80s over and over, and I did very well in these therapeutic communities. I felt there was a part of me that felt safe there, like I could talk about all these things that were going on inside of our home and our family, um, and so I did very well. And but I went to treatment and went to treatment, and Jim and Adrian, the owners of the lodge, know how many treatments I went through. I spent 1,641 days in inpatient treatment from 1986 until 2017, over and over and over, and I just couldn't get it. I didn't understand. Like I would do very well in those communities, and then I would be dumped out into a recovery, uh, uh, a sober living environment, and so that's where I am with all this. A person goes to treatment, and then they go to an IOP, a PHP, and then they come to us, and so we get the end result of that and these years of conditioning that have gone into this child or grown adult, upbringing. And so the part of the changing face that I see, the difference, and I had this same disease myself. I found that within my family structure, if I did nothing, like zero, because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to navigate this life. I was completely unequipped. So I, when I got to these places, these recovery, sober living houses, I just I still didn't know. I still had that burning hole inside of me, that wound that I was trying to self-medicate for so many years. So I can go to treatment, I can go to IOP, I can get some therapy, and that's good stuff.
Mhm.
And I don't ever discount any of that. But at the same time, uh, the rubber meets the road when we get to our sober living environment, and we're introduced. We're trying to integrate ourselves back into society, get a job, go to meetings, find a sponsor, and do those things. We also bring our dishonesty from our disease to that platform, and like Jessica Pon and Jim and Adrian get on my case about believing the addict too quickly. They tell me, "Oh yeah, I'll take them to the job interview. They'll go in and they'll dodge the interview and come out the back door and get in my car and tell me, "Oh yeah, it went pretty well. We'll wait to hear." And I'm thinking, I'm believing this guy. He went to the interview, but all of a sudden he ended up at my car door. So I tend to want to believe people, and I also know that what helped me get sober was having somebody that would actually take interest in my recovery with me, and how that might look in the beginning, developing some good habits of getting to a meeting every day. I was locked into one of the best sponsors in early recovery, who gave me 5 things to do every day. And that was when I woke up, the first thing I needed to do was ask for help. If I didn't have a God, ask for help anyway, and he wanted me to do that on my knees. And I was so desperate to get this that I started praying every morning and asking for help in a very simple prayer. God, please help me get through the day and navigate whatever I have to navigate. Just help me. And basically, he wanted me to keep that prayer simple, as well as the one at the end of the day, which was one of those 5 things: pray in the morning and thank God at night. And I didn't have a God. I came into all this. We were an atheistic type of family. We didn't believe in God. We believed in money and vodka. And so now I'm being asked to get on my knees and pray to something I don't believe in. My father radically didn't believe in. So it went against the belief system, however warped it was. It went against that system that I was raised with. So it was a really hard hurdle to cross.
Yeah,
And then,
and I think what you're talking about here is the continuum of care, right? You've got the treatment center, but I mean, there's a whole line of things because, like you just talked about with the religion, that's a very common occurrence, and we're going to talk more about that later with Reverend Kathleen. But that's a very common occurrence that people really have not just don't have a God, but are angry
Yeah, yeah,
too,
absolutely.
but one of the things that I think the lodge does right is to continue that level of care straight on through,
Hmm.
at
And
least until that first year of recovery. If you can get to that first year in recovery, you have an 85% chance of remaining in recovery long term. If you don't get to that first year, it drops to less than 15% chance.
I agree. I agree. And I just have to give myself enough time for the things I've learned that are in my toolkit that I try to try to do every day, to take seed. If I don't give it enough time, if I don't, I just really have to be patient with recovery, be patient with myself, be patient with my family and how, I want them to come around and think I'm this great guy all of a sudden and go trying to make amends too early, that type of thing. So,
The
um,
reintegration is really tough, isn't it?
it is, it is. And I also took things to another level with my addiction, which ended me up in prison, federal prison. So I had, lost a couple marriages, multiple businesses, all the loss that goes along with addiction. I could give you a long list. Um, and I, the pain is what finally took me to the point where I was willing to sit down, to get down on my knees, because I don't know anything else. I had tried every medication that there was, literally, and most of the treatment centers, from California to South Florida to North Jersey, to Arizona, because it was just maybe a better treatment center will help me. Maybe a longer term treatment center will help me. So I went to 2 year long treatments, and everybody thought, well, he'll be good when he gets out of there. He'll be all fixed, because we go to hospitals to get our knee fixed. We go to treatment to get us fixed. And my
Mhm.
expectation always was that when I came out, I was ready to go. And wherever I went, there I was. I was still the same guy, needing to develop some quality habits and some new coping skills, that I needed to learn them and try them a couple times to see that they actually do work. Because most of them sounded pretty corny to me. Call my sponsor if I'm in an emotional upheaval and I don't know what to do, and I don't know, got fired from my job or whatever. Jim Tickey's upset with me. I spent 14 months at the lodge. Um, I I I just didn't know how to navigate those feelings. And it would often, I'd just buckle at the knees and go use and go do what I was taught to do, which was just to settle those feelings down. And so I found over time, over that, let's call it the first year, that if I call a good sponsor and tell him what's going on with me, he fosters the environment for me to reframe what's got me so much in this emotional tizzy that I'm ready to go drink over this.
Mhm.
And it's, hardly worth me ever sabotaging my sobriety over some feelings. And that was the other thing that I could mention is in this environment that I grew up in, feelings were, there was a lot of drama. So I was addicted to drama also. I just heard that somebody mentioned that. Um, and I, the feelings just seemed my feelings seemed exaggerated. Like I would get way too upset about uh, something my sister did. I was just way, and even in life thereafter, I was always upset. I was always upset because my habitual thinking, always took me down the same rabbit holes. And at the bottom of that rabbit hole, I felt like hell and I
Mhm.
wanted to go extinguish my feelings. That's, and so I got better extinguishing my feelings with methamphetamine and opiates combined. And I thought I had found the right cocktail. Sobriety hadn't worked for me. I'd been to treatment how many times? Been to sober houses all over the country, and I just can't seem to get this. And I was so frustrated. And a genuine person who would go in these facilities with all the right intentions and sincerity, and be liked in there and be liked by Mike, but yet I would still go do the same thing over and over and over again. And I was desperate. I was too afraid to kill myself, didn't want to kill myself, but couldn't be sober. And I'm stuck in that hallway in the middle where I'm afraid to live and I'm afraid to die. And it's a horrible place to be. And most addicts know that hallway, and they know how lonely it is. And as we mentioned the word lonely, I read some key books that were important to me in that first year or two. And one of them was called Tribe, and it really emphasized the importance that we are tribal people and that I need to be connected with other people. Well, chemicals and alcohol and all that pushed me away from people. I didn't want anything to, if I could spend the rest of my life in a nice bedroom with all my TVs and never see another person, I literally said that to some people one time. I said, if I could just stay here and never leave this room, that's where addiction took me. I didn't want anything to do with the community, with people, with anything that represented health. And I will mention one other thing that I run into as I work with these guys every day. And every day looks different, and every client looks different, and where I have to meet them looks different. Some I can blast into their room and roust them out of bed, and others I need to tiptoe into that room, literally. Jim doesn't always agree with that approach, but it happened last week where I blasted into somebody's room and rousting them up, and they were in the middle of something, and I said, "Oh, sorry to blast in on you." And Jim was in the background, and he said, "No, he's not." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so every client looks different. I don't want to get off track. But I have to force myself to be around people. This job has given me a huge opportunity that forces me to be around people every day. And that's what I needed. My working the 12th step, which is helping others, for those that don't know, was always missing from my program. I was way too self-centered. I was here to get sober. I wasn't here to be a goody two-shoe and go help other people. I was way too selfish for that. So somewhere along the line, I realized by helping others was my path to freedom. So
And I think that's the key right there. That's what changed in you for sure. When service became a way of life, Jim always points this out, and I think it's important. The Oxford group's philosophy was, I help the other guy so the other guy stays sober. And the AA, Bill Wilson's noticed that by helping the other guy, it didn't matter if the other guy drank or not, he didn't drink.
Exactly. And I remember also in that first year that I had a therapist and a sponsor who came to me with love and compassion. They realized too that every addict looks different.
Yeah.
And I just really needed somebody to believe in me. I needed somebody to love me. I needed somebody to and guide me and help me reframe those situations that had me feeling so terrible. And it was
until you learn how to do it yourself, right, Rich?
I learned some new thinking patterns.
Meditation
is one of the things that helped me better my mental agility. Like I always thought, if I start thinking about the wreckage of my marriage, and I start thinking and go down that rabbit hole, at the bottom of that rabbit hole is a terrible place to be. Like I don't need to keep going there. I need to live in the day and think about what's good in my life, not what's lacking in my life. So I was a huge self-pity guy, victim, of all this, and victimization is like quicksand. You know, you get into it, and it's very difficult to climb out of. And so back to meditation gave me better mental agility, not to go down those rabbit holes. Why do I want to go thinking about all that stuff in the past? It's not doing me any good. I'm not, so, but I couldn't stop my mind. It would go down the wrong places. And when I got a craving, I'd go down that rabbit hole too. And at the bottom of it, I had to use. I didn't want to call a sponsor. He might talk me out of it. I had already decided to use because I went of it, but I had so meditation gave me better mental agility.
Yeah, I think so. And the strides that you've made are just remarkable. I want to let everybody know Rich has really generously given us a guide to rehabilitation and recovery after treatment, and that's going to be available on the dashboard. It's a guide to continued success. It's got about 30 some odd pages in there, so take advantage of that. That's on the dashboard. You just click on Rich's picture there, and that'll take you to his bio and his free gift. I really, really appreciate you, my friend, my brother. I think that, I wish that we could bottle up what it is, right?
Yeah.
And give it to somebody and say, here, this will shave 10 years off your journey.
I do too, and I give it a lot of thought, especially with some of those clients that we have that have been with us for a while. Like you inevitably become emotionally involved with that client, and you want the best for them so bad. And you just, because I struggled through treatment centers and prison, and I still couldn't stay sober, regardless of the quality or the time away. And so bottling it up for me, I guess it all started with baby steps and taking some suggestions that were given to me at the lodge from a sponsor. Those 5 things that I talked about, I never finished covering them in that 20-minute thing, but pray in the morning, ask for help, and thank God at the end of the day. Go to a meeting, call your sponsor, and read some quality recovery material.
Right.
Do those 5 things every day. And he said, I'll guarantee you at the end of the year, you'll be sober. So I did it. He'd check on me halfway through the day to see where I was on my list of 5 things. And I liked that. It was simplistic. It wasn't this sort of
The
broad.
grandiose, you gotta, do Hail Marys and get some holy water and burn
Yeah.
some sage and, cover all the bases, Rich.
But he guaranteed I was desperate to stay sober. And he
Yeah.
said, I guarantee you, if you do these 5 things every day, at the end of the year, you're going to be sober. And I did them every day for a
Good.
year. And at the end of that year, I was sober and I felt like fantastic. And miracles began to happen in my life that are beyond, miracles that I never thought possible.
All right, Rich. Well, thank you so much for enlightening us today. Your talk was wonderful. I will see you back in the main room, everybody. We're getting ready to do the panel in just a second. So if you want to go on over back to the main room and don't forget to get Rich's guide, click on his photo and get the guide to recovery and rehabilitation after treatment. See you in the main room.